The reason why I enjoyed hanging out with my friends on the weekends so much was mainly because I was able to be myself. Other reasons too was my social skills has improved. Some of the reasons why I've improved, some of the things I did to help improve my social skills was first, over these over this year I learned to let go of fear when it comes to talking with people. I find I find one tip to let go of fear is to learn to not be afraid of being rejected or being insulted. I didn't quite master it yet, but I was at least aware that's one huge factor that could help you not be as nervous. Another thing I did was think of some things ahead of time to talk about when talking with new people. In other words, kind of rehearse a list of things to say, like when you approach a person. Like, hi, how you doing? How's the weather? Or you look at something, if you see a person and and you're at the bus stop and you want to talk to them, look at the surrounding areas and find something unusual. Like if it's really cold that day, talk about the weather. If there's a event that happened like on the news that's real big, talk about that. If it's near that, like if you're on the bus, just be like, yeah man, what do you think about this bus system? Yeah, it's a long wait, isn't it? Or like, how do you like the smart bus system? Or even sometimes it's okay to even just say like, what you doing? I just thought I want to talk, we're just waiting here, it's a long wait on the bus. Things like that. I kind of think about those ahead of time. Some things to say are depending on certain people and situations. Other things are dependent on different people and situations and other things. So it's good to kind of rehearse that. And then when you talk to people, like when the conversation is going, it's good to have some topics to think about, to talk about too. Some topics that I know of that other people would like to talk about that I'm interested is the news. I've been reading the news lately, so that's something I could talk about. One weekend after a really hard week at Kettering, probably the hardest week I ever had actually in regard to workload. I met this one girl at a party. Her name was Nikki. I met Nikki at my friend Sarah's house. She happened to be Sarah's best friend. And I've known Sarah for a while. But the funny thing about it, I never met her and she was her best friend. I originally wasn't planning on hanging out with anybody because I had a lot of homework that weekend, but I'm glad I went down to Detroit anyway. I wanted to have a fun break from all that studying, even if I still had a lot more to do. When I got to Sarah's house, I saw Nikki, and I didn't know who she was, but one thing that struck me, I knew she was really beautiful. I started to talk to her, and she seemed interested. I was talking to her. She seemed kind of shy, but I noticed there seemed to be a chemistry. At least she seemed to like me, and I could tell. Sarah, Nikki, and a few other people and I went to a club. It was actually at a Al-Anon facility, and they have dances for Al-Anon members. But the people we hang out with like to hang out there and dance for some reason when they have a dancing event every Saturday. It's like going to a club, but not a lot of people come, and sometimes kids even come there. But I was really excited to go there because I knew this pretty girl seemed to like me, and definitely I liked her too. At least that's what I could tell at this point. Unfortunately, I knew there was competition too. Another guy liked her too. However, I didn't let that worry me. I learned from the past to not let fear stop you and make you nervous, so I tried to focus. I asked her to dance, and we ended up dancing. We had a good time. We then started to talk. We talked about our past relationships and times we got cheated on. She got cheated on too, and she didn't like it. And that was something that was a common interest. And I went on the common interest and talked some more. we started to get closer. That night, I decided to give her a ride home. I dropped her off at her house, and we actually kissed. For some reason, it didn't surprise me though, because I was observing body language. I learned to observe body language more, and I could tell when girls lean in closer to you, that means they like you. If they get excited and play with their hair, that also means they're excited, and she did that too. And sometimes if girls act nervous, that means they like you too, and she acted a little nervous, so those were good signs. I was happy. Once I headed back to Kettering to finish my homework, I realized how great Nikki would be as a girlfriend. But I tried not to let it interfere with my studying. And I tried not let that excitement interfere with letting the things natural flow happen and actually possibly having her as a girlfriend. During that following week, I decided it was a good idea to keep contact with her. It's always good if a girl likes you to call her again. That's what I've learned. So I called her a couple of days later. Me and Nikki talked some more on the phone. Later that week, after we talked some more, we got to know each other more and we got more comfortable. I felt like it was, and observing her body language and in the verbal cues she said, it definitely still let me know that she did like me. The reasons was she sounded excited when she talked to me. She talked to me a lot about herself. In her inflected voice sounded like she was excited. It definitely showed that she liked me. Plus she talked about previous relationships. So, I decided to ask her to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. That night, immediately, I went on a drive, I listened to music, and I celebrated. I listened to my Y-Box 2 cassette player I built and looked up at the stars. I felt so overjoyed. It was so beautiful. I was so happy. The following weekend, Nikki and I hung out. We hung out every weekend after that. I often picked her up out of my, kind of like when I went out with Rachel, I often picked her up from her house right when I got back, right when I left Kettering, and we hung out with my Asperger's friends. We often went to that club at the Al-Anon place and we danced. We had a lot of fun. We always slow danced, not the slow songs. I often brought Jared, Dave Gerard, and Sarah. Jared was always a lot of fun. Dave Gerard always got hyper when he drank pop, and I loved it. And he loved talking about movies and video games. And Sarah was always really enjoyable to hang out with, and she was Nikki's best friend. Nikki and I often hung out at Sarah's house too and chilled. And we often spent the night over there. I was really happy. This was the first time I ever actually spent an entire night sleeping next to a girl, and that really made me happy. I wanted to do that for the longest time. When I went out with Rachel, I wanted to do that, but unfortunately, due to her disability, her parents were kind of protective and didn't want that. After a while, once Nikki's aunt got to know me, her and I some more, I got to go spend the night over at Nikki's house. Nikki lived with her aunt. She was really nice. Her name was Kim. I got to feel what it was like to sleep next to a girlfriend. I loved it. And I felt really lucky too. On Sundays, I continued to feel overjoyed about the fun times I had on the weekends. I realized this opportunities that has happened wouldn't have happened if I didn't set these goals and really had the determination and drive and had to face a lot of challenges to get to this point. I felt overjoyed by the fact that I had a very beautiful, and at the time felt like the best girlfriend I could ever possibly have. It was such a sweet award. I felt very happy for what I learned this year. I learned that when when things get really tough, such as when I was overloaded with the schoolwork at Kettering, you have to really put your mind to it. Even if it's painful to do it, you have to just accept it and not really pay attention to the fear, but the reason why you're doing it. I want to eventually make some money, and I want to do it in a way that's enjoyable. And I love electricity. I love electronics. And I think having a job in it might be good. At least that's what I think. Sometimes if you have trouble with something, it's always good to talk with your teacher, seek out help, as I was saying. And I continue to see that's what really helped this year, like last year. I've noticed some professors were able to accommodate me. For example, my physics professor was able to accommodate me by giving me a different test and allowing me more time to take it. And I was able to actually take the test outside the class in a different room. I found that really helped me because I still took me a long time to get tests done. When I socialized, I learned that it's always good to have the courage to try to meet new people, even if you feel nervous. Yes, there might be times where you could say something odd, and there might be a time where you might touch a girl on the shoulder at the wrong time, and it may just mess it up. But being a fear that it could mess up may just mess up the chances as a whole. So it's better not to worry and just do it. But it's always good to at least assess the pros and cons and use common sense about it too. I ended up going out with Nikki because I learned these things. When I talked to her, she liked me and realized I probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the courage to jump on the opportunity and get to know her. That other guy that liked her probably would have liked her instead, and she probably wouldn't be as happy. I thought about how lucky I was in regards to all the things I accomplished in a year. Even though I struggled academically, I knew I was overcoming a lot of challenges in my life. It seemed clear to me that I was heading in a good direction. I was going to eventually be an electrical engineer. I knew electrical engineers make a lot of money, and I knew that definitely was going to be successful in life. Even if the job might have struggles sometime when it comes to following directions. I also felt like I was beginning to overcome my social skills again for good, like I did in 2002. Even though I did think that 2002 and found out I was wrong in 2003, I felt like I learned a lot more fundamentals that will make me socially successful. Not to mention, I met some friends that don't have Asperger's, like Dave Boucher and some of his other friends, and I was able to hang out with them all the time and felt fairly comfortable, and they encouraged me to be myself, and they liked it when I was myself. They loved my interest. Best of all, I met a girl named Nikki who I thought was really cool, really beautiful, and a girl of my dreams. I felt so happy. Now I realize all I needed to do was work on my spiritual growing again, and that would make my life perfect. Could my life really be close to being perfect? I was interested in finding out and seeing what surprises awaited this upcoming year. In 2006.